Second update. Hey Reddit, sorry for the wait. Life has been interesting. So, remember where we left off? Ryan showing up drunk at my apartment after finding out about the baby? Well, I promised to meet him at that cafe the next morning, and TBH, I half expected him not to show. But there he was at 10:45 a.m. looking like absolute trash, and I mean that in the most objective way possible. Bloodshot eyes, same clothes as the night before, and this nervous energy that made him keep jiggling his leg under the table. The table was literally shaking. The first thing I noticed was he'd already ordered me a decaf latte, which, okay, thoughtful I guess, except I've switched to herbal tea since getting pregnant because coffee makes me nauseous now. Small detail, but it kind of summed up everything about Ryan, making assumptions about what I need without actually paying attention. Anyway, that meeting was a lot. He started with apologies. Lots of apologies. Sorry for the birthday humiliation, sorry for cheating, sorry for the financial lies, sorry for showing up drunk. It was like watching someone frantically check boxes on an I messed up form. I just sipped my tea, ordered to replace the unwanted latte, and let him talk himself out. There's something weirdly empowering about staying silent when someone expects you to respond, you know? When he finally ran out of steam, I asked the only question that mattered. What exactly? Seeing his reaction when I mentioned the lawyer and my plans, I couldn't help but feel a little bit of amusement, though it wasn't mean-spirited. It was just genuinely surprising. He really thought that reconciliation was even on the table. I wasn't keeping him from his child, but the reality was, everything needed to change. I made it crystal clear that if there was any chance of starting over, he needed to prove himself, not just with words but through consistent action. It wasn't going to be enough for him to show up only when it was convenient. His face when I mentioned the lawyer again was priceless. It was like watching someone who thought they were just dipping their toes in the shallow and suddenly realized they were in over their head in the deep end of the pool. Reddit friends, here's the second update. I made it clear that trust needed to be rebuilt from the ground up. I wasn't keeping him from his child, but I needed him to prove he could be a real father. The conversation ended with me handing him the necessary details to take responsibility, and I honestly thought that would be the last I'd hear about it. If you enjoy Reddit stories, make sure to subscribe for more. So the conversation didn't end there. As I stepped out of the room, he kept attempting to refocus the conversation on us as a couple, while I continually steered it back to us as co-parents. It felt like we were having two separate conversations. Eventually, he got frustrated and accused me of being cold and calculated. I pointed out that, in reality, cold and calculated was exactly what his birthday note had been. The difference? I was being cold and calculated to protect our child, while he had done it to protect his ego. That shut him up pretty quickly. Before I left, I handed him a folder. Inside were the ultrasound pictures, the due date, doctor details, and what my lawyer had drafted regarding child support. I told him to review it, consult his own lawyer if needed, and let me know his thoughts once he had time to process it all. As I stood up to leave, he grabbed my wrist again. Seriously, what is it with the wrist grabbing? He even asked if Maria knew about the baby. I told him that wasn't my information to share, but that I hadn't gone out of my way to tell her. Then I gently but firmly removed his hand and walked out. Over the next few weeks, things calmed down. I focused on setting up the nursery, which basically meant converting half of my bedroom into baby central. The crib from IKEA took Sophia and me 3 hours to assemble. Those instructions really should come with a translator. I got a changing table from a second-hand store and this adorable mobile with little stars that my mom sent. I'd been putting money aside aggressively, picking up some extra work editing social media content on weekends. Nothing glamorous, but it helped bridge the gap Ryan's contribution had left. My mom also sent some money to help, which was both touching and slightly uncomfortable. I've always been independent, you know. I responded factually but kept emotional distance. Sometimes Ryan would try to veer into personal territory, asking if I was seeing anyone. Nope, or mentioning some show we used to watch together. I would gently redirect. Then came the incident. Yes, it deserves capital letters. I was at Target on a Sunday afternoon loading up on diapers, because you can never have too many according to every mom blog ever, when I literally bumped carts with Maria again. What are the odds? This time though was different. She wasn't awkward or defensive. She actually seemed relieved to see me. She immediately asked how I was feeling, how the pregnancy was going, all while looking genuinely interested. Then she said something that caught me completely off guard. She apologized. Not a rushed, uncomfortable sorry, not sorry, but a real, thoughtful apology acknowledging the pain she'd caused. She explained that Ryan had sold her the same story he'd apparently fed to multiple women, that we were basically over just going through the motions, that I was holding him back from his true potential. She found out he'd been seeing another woman while dating her. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. We ended up getting coffee, tea for me, and having this surreal conversation about the man we both now saw clearly for who he was. Not a monster, just a deeply insecure person who needed constant validation and was willing to lie to get it. As we were saying goodbye, Maria casually mentioned that Ryan had been let go from his job 2 weeks earlier. She thought I should know since it might affect child support. I thanked her for the info and headed home, processing this new development. I wasn't happy about Ryan's job loss. It complicated things, but I appreciated knowing. That evening, as I was folding tiny onesies and listening to my favorite podcast, my doorbell rang. I checked the peephole. Always check the peephole, folks, and saw Ryan standing there. Sober this time but looking rough. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. He started talking immediately, asking if I'd heard about his job, saying it wasn't his fault that he was being set up. Then he asked if I'd seen Maria recently, sounding suspicious. I told him yes, we'd run into each other at Target. His face did this weird thing where it tried to look casual but just looked constipated instead. He asked what we talked about and I simply said, "You mostly." He did not like that answer. Then he started getting agitated, saying we were probably conspiring against him, that everyone was turning on him when he was just trying his best in a difficult situation. I reminded him that he created this situation with choices he made, and that playing the victim wasn't going to work with me. When he broke down, not dramatically, not movie-style tears, just crumpled, saying his life was falling apart. No job, no girlfriend, an apartment he could barely afford, and a baby on the way he wasn't prepared for. For a brief moment I felt that old urge to comfort him, to fix things, but then I remembered the cold words in that birthday note. "You're useless. I deserve better." Instead of comfort, I offered clarity. I told him he had 2 paths forward. Continue the pity party and lose everything, or step up, take responsibility and rebuild. For the first time since this whole mess started, Ryan really listened. No interruptions, no excuses, just listening. When I finished, he nodded slowly and asked if we could talk inside. I hesitated, then agreed, but left the door open. Never fully close yourself in with someone unstable. We sat at my kitchen table and he asked thoughtful questions about the baby. For the first time, not surface-level stuff but real questions about health, development, and plans for delivery. As we talked, I realized something important. I no longer felt anything romantic for Ryan, but I did want him to be okay, not for his sake but for our child's. Before he left, he promised to review the child support agreement and find a new job ASAP. He also surprisingly thanked me for not hating him when I had every right to. I told him hate takes too much energy and I was saving my energy for more important things. Now the next few weeks brought subtle changes. Ryan found a new job, paying less but steadier. He signed the child support agreement without argument. He even enrolled in a parenting class at the community center. As my due date approached, things felt not perfect but functional. Ryan and I have established a cautious co-parenting relationship, built on clear boundaries and expectations. He comes to doctor appointments when invited. He helped assemble the crib when I finally admitted defeat with those ridiculous IKEA instructions. Last week, at 8 months pregnant, I received a package from him. Inside was a journal, not expensive, just simple and practical, with a note that said, "For your thoughts, plans, and all the true crime podcast notes you want to write. You were never useless. I was just too self-absorbed to see your value." I didn't respond. Some things don't need acknowledgement. But I did start using the journal mostly to document this journey so I can someday tell our child the complicated, messy, very human story of how they came to be. Next time I'll update you on the birth, coming soon, and how Ryan handled the reality of actually becoming a father. Because if there's one thing I've learned through all this, it's that people can surprise you sometimes. With their cruelty, sometimes with their growth, but always with their humanity. Last update. Hey Reddit fam, it's been so long since my last update that some of you probably forgot about me. A lot has happened and I've been meaning to post, but having a newborn doesn't exactly leave you with tons of free time or functioning brain cells. So the baby is here. Little Ella arrived 6 weeks ago, weighing 7 pounds 4 ounces with a full head of gray hair and her father's chin. The only feature of his I'm not mad about her inheriting, well, let's just say all those YouTube birth vlogs and sharing on my Reddit stories account I binged did not prepare me for the reality. 32 hours, people. 32 hours. The funny thing is, during those endless hours of contractions, I kept thinking about how much I'd changed since that birthday party from 8 months ago. I was a woman standing in shock with a breakup note in my hand. Now I was bringing a whole human into the world. Life comes at you fast, doesn't it? Ryan was actually at the hospital for the birth, which surprised pretty much everyone, including me. He showed up with this massive teddy bear that literally wouldn't fit through the door of my hospital room. Seriously, where did he think we were going to put that thing in my one-bedroom apartment? But he stayed through the waiting, through my not-so-ladylike screaming, through it all. Sophia, my best friend, was my rock though when things got intense and I was convinced I couldn't do it anymore. She was right there, reminding me that I was already doing it. Ryan mostly hovered awkwardly in the corner, scrolling through his phone and occasionally asking if I needed anything, which, I mean, at least he was trying. When Ella finally arrived and they placed her on my chest, I had this moment of pure clarity. Everything we go through, all the heartbreak, betrayal, uncertainty, it all led to her, and I wouldn't change a single step of the journey. Ryan cried when he held her, not movie star tears, but this awkward trying not but can't help it kind of crying that made his nose run and his face blotchy. It was the most genuine emotion I'd seen from him in our entire relationship. The first few weeks at home were a blur of diaper changes, feeding struggles, and sleep deprivation unlike anything I've ever experienced. My mom came to stay for 2 weeks, which was both a blessing and a challenge. She kept reorganizing my kitchen cabinets because apparently my system makes no sense. But seriously, who puts colanders with the pots instead of with the strainers? That's just chaotic. Ryan has been surprisingly present. Not in a live-in father way, but he comes by twice a week for scheduled visits. Sometimes he brings useful things like diapers or takeout. Other times he brings ridiculous baby clothes that are completely impractical but admittedly cute. Last week it was a tiny leather jacket for a 6-week-old. I didn't have the heart to tell him she'll outgrow it before the weather's even cool enough to wear it. Our co-parenting relationship is still evolving. We have moments of tension, especially when he shows up late or cancels last minute because of work stuff. But we also have moments where it feels almost normal, like when he noticed I was struggling with a clogged milk duct and actually researched remedies, then showed up with cabbage leaves and a heating pad. If you know, financially, things have settled into a workable routine. Ryan pays his child support on time so far, and I've been able to work from home part-time doing social media management. Not getting rich but paying the bills. My landlord actually let me renew the lease in just my name without any drama, which felt like a small victory. The apartment feels completely different now. Ryan's stuff is gone, replaced by baby gear that somehow takes up twice the space. I repainted the living room this soft sage green that makes me happy every time I see it. It's amazing how much your surroundings affect your mood, you know? Maria and I still run into each other occasionally. Our city isn't that big. It's less awkward now, more like running into a distant acquaintance than someone who blew up your life last time. She was with some bearded guy who kept calling her babe every 3 seconds. She seemed happy, if a little forced about it. I genuinely hope she is. As for Ryan, he's still struggling in some ways. His new job isn't going great, according to Sophia, who heard from Aaron, who plays basketball with Ryan's coworker. Got to love small city gossip networks. He moved into this depressing studio apartment that he's constantly complaining about. Sometimes when he comes to see Ella, I catch him looking around my place with this expression that's hard to read. Nostalgia mixed with regret, maybe. The weirdest development has been Ryan's apparent personal growth journey. He mentioned he's been seeing a therapist, which, wow. This is the guy who once told me therapy was just paying someone to listen to you whine. He's been reading parenting books and even joined some dad group on Instagram. Sometimes I wonder if aliens abducted the real Ryan and left this pod person in his place. Anyway, my own life has taken some unexpected turns too. Remember how I mentioned working part-time from home? That actually came through a connection from Sergio, who recommended me to his sister's company. The work is interesting, the people are nice, and most importantly, I can do it while Ella naps. When she actually decides napping is on her agenda. And then there's Jason. Yes, there's an Jason now. He's the delivery guy who kept bringing my grocery order during those first chaotic weeks postpartum. At first, I barely registered him beyond thank you and please put the bags by the door because hello, new mom zombie mode. But he started adding little notes to my deliveries, recommending items other parents had found helpful, or sometimes just a dad joke that would make me snort laugh. One day, when I was particularly frazzled, hadn't showered in 3 days and pretty sure there was spit up in my hair, he dropped off my order and asked if I wanted him to help carry the cases of water to my kitchen. I hesitated, strange man in my apartment and all that, but something about him felt safe. As he helped put away the groceries, we started talking. Turns out he's finishing his degree in environmental science, delivering groceries to pay the bills. He has a younger sister with 2 kids that he helps with regularly, which explains why he didn't run screaming from my disaster zone of an apartment. We exchanged numbers in case there were any issues with future deliveries. We both knew that was BS, but it was a comfortable fiction. We've been texting and he's come by for coffee a few times. It's nothing serious. I'm in no rush to dive into another relationship, but it's nice to talk to an adult who doesn't want to discuss diaper brands or sleep training methods. Last week, when Ryan came for his visit, Jason was just leaving. The look on Ryan's face was complicated. Later he casually asked who that guy was. I kept it vague, partly because there's not much to tell yet and partly because it's not really his business. He made a few comments about moving on fast before seeming to catch himself and backing off. Sophia thinks I should go for it with Jason, but I'm taking it day by day. After everything that's happened, I've learned that rushing into things never ends well. Besides, Ella is my priority right now. Dating as a single mom is a whole different ballgame and I'm still learning the rules. Speaking of Sophia, she's been my constant through all of this. When I'm overwhelmed and convinced I'm failing at motherhood, she brings over iced coffee. My first love, finally back in my life now that breastfeeding is going better. And reminds me that all new parents feel this way. She takes Ella for a few hours sometimes so I can shower, nap, or just stare at a wall in blessed silence. Yesterday was actually my birthday. 1 year since the box that changed everything. Instead of dwelling on that memory, I had a small gathering at my place. Sophia and her husband Aaron and Sergio, my cousin Madison, and a few other close friends. Ryan stopped by briefly to drop off a gift, a surprisingly thoughtful bracelet with Ella's birthstone, but didn't stay. As I looked around at my little apartment, filled with people who truly care about me, at my daughter sleeping peacefully in her bassinet, at the life I've built from the ashes of what I thought I wanted, I felt something I hadn't expected: gratitude. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe Jason will become something meaningful, or maybe he'll just be a brief, kind chapter in this story. Maybe Ryan will continue growing into a decent co-parent, or maybe he'll revert to old patterns. Maybe I'll stay in this apartment forever, or maybe I'll eventually find a house with a yard for Ella to play in. What I do know is that I'm not the same woman who stood holding that note on her birthday last year. That woman was shattered but determined. This woman is rebuilt, stronger at the broken places. So, I guess if there's any moral to this long, messy story, it's that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you can lead to the best version of yourself. Not immediately, not easily, but eventually. P.S. If you're wondering what happened to that giant teddy bear Ryan brought to the hospital, it's currently serving as a barricade to keep Ella from rolling off my bed when I need to put her down for 2 seconds to pee. So, I guess it found its purpose after all. For those asking what happened to the infamous breakup note, I kept it. It's in a memory box in Ella's closet, along with her hospital bracelet, first lock of hair, and the positive pregnancy test. Someday when she's old enough, we'll tell her the whole story, not to burden her, but because it's part of her history too.